was first presented to us, she was quite small, so the amount of each medication that we could use, bleomycin, alcohol, and STS was quite limited for each treatment. And because it was so huge, we had no choice. So then this was when I suggested to the parents that, look, how about we try and freeze it as well. So the parents were like, okay, but I told them, your kid is going to be n equals to 1 in terms of my experience. It took a while for them to come on board, so we did a couple of rounds of sclerotherapy. After a while, they relented, and that's when we went into freezing it. And as you can see, this was after several sclerotherapies. It was still quite huge in the eczema, but this was after more sclerotherapy and 2 or 3 sessions, I think, of cryoablation, and it's actually come down quite significantly. So currently she's been started on sirolimus and has been on sirolimus for the past year, and things have continued to shrink down. Unfortunately, I don't have a more recent picture to show, but that said, I think for the microcystic lymphatic malformations, it is certainly worthwhile considering using cryoablation. So next, apart from freezing, we can also barbecue. And this thyroid RFA probe that was made famous by Professor Beck in Korea actually is a very wonderful tool. And if you think about it, it is kind of like, sorry, I'm a car person, so I always think about cars. And if you've seen the manufacturer of cars, they do spot welding. And so this thyroid RFA probe enables you to do spot welding. That means you can actually select which spots you want to burn, and you burn it and deliver the heat in those areas. So that moving shot technique that Professor Beck uses is actually a very fantastic technique. Although it is much like, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with, a dot matrix printer that prints 1 pixel at a time, right? So the technique, and this technique has actually been used and published for various things like facial venous malformations as well as microcystic lymphatic malformations. So it looks like burning them also does work, right? So I think the beauty of it is that you can first map out on your ultrasound scan, and instead of using AI, you just burn the image onto your brain, and then you know where to move your ultrasound probe, and you can then really target the lesion real time. And my personal take is actually to burn as you pull back, do a pullback burn rather than try and do a forward burn. And the microcystic lesions with non-communicating compartments actually tend to respond very well. Compared to sclerotherapy, the parents actually reported much less swelling. And actually, so for some of the kids that I've actually done sclerotherapy, RFA as well as cryoablation, parents actually fed back that they didn't think that after cryoablation, for some of the sessions, that it came down as much as with RFA. Well, so that's some of the observations, and of course, then we also worried about destabilization. That's not something you need to worry about too much. So this is some of the work that comes out from, I think this looks like Taiwan and with Professor Beck, where they have been using radiofrequency ablation. So the results have actually been really phenomenal, and so this one is a case of an upper lip venous malformation that we have actually treated multiple times until what remained was actually, a lot of it was actually scar tissue. So this was using a pullback, and as we are pulling back and applying the ultrasound, the RF pulse, you can see the increased echogenicity as you would when you do any thermal ablation, even in other organs like the liver, for example. One of the things that I've learned is actually not to burn twice on the same spot in the same sitting. And so this is that kid with that venous malformation. So it was actually a spongiform venous malformation. We treated it multiple times using injection sclerotherapies, and after the 6th sclerotherapy, it didn't really improve anymore. as it didn't shrink down very much more. So that was when he was born, and then subsequently, we did after the various stereotherapies, it was still pretty big and substantial. So that was when I had a discussion with Chow Wei and said, hey, why don't we try to do something different? And so we burned it, and actually you can see that before we burned it, it was actually, after the multiple stereotherapies, it became a solid chunk like that on MRI. So this image actually shows what it is on burn, and this is actually an image of the freezing. So before the first ablation, this was what it looked like. And so this was our setup. So all the children, we do all these under general anesthesia. And so you can choose the active tip that you want. And you can see that immediately after the burn during the procedure, actually there's a bit of browning of the overlying skin as well. I'm not sure whether it's due to the iodine entirely, but certainly after the first round, it actually come down from this to this. And so we did the ablation at 6-monthly intervals to give it enough time to shrink down. So this was actually the freezing that we did. And so after 2 rounds of freezing, 2 rounds of burning, and after the last complications, that the whole thing broke down, it's actually healed up, and there was some necrosis. It healed up after that. Plastics has been involved. This is him after eating ice cream in Japan. And of course, what you see, the difference is that you finally see his teeth. And this was something that the parents had not seen since he was born. And so it's been quite a journey, and it has since healed up, and after some scar revision. So this was after the burns, and this is after 6 months from the last burn. He had previous, so after this first scar revision, and that's what he looks like in the recent picture that parents sent me. He's now in primary 1. So it's been quite a journey for them, quite a journey for me. It's been a very harrowing experience, and I caused the parents a lot of heart attacks. But I think that certainly in terms of the treatment of these vascular malformations, we can now really think about doing things a little bit differently, but for select groups of patients. And I think things that are a little bit more solid, more difficult to treat traditionally with injection sclerotherapy. The ablation needle costs about 2,000 Singapore dollars. Alpelicid would cost, I think, about 5,000 Singapore dollars at this point. So, in terms of cost effectiveness, it is still worth considering using thermal ablation. And even if you did a couple of rounds of thermal ablation, it's still cheaper than a couple of months of alpelicid for sure. But certainly, it adds another instrument to your arsenal, and it's something that I think is worth considering. Start slow, go slow, and be careful when you're navigating through difficult areas. Be mindful of the nerves, the anatomy of the other structures nearby, and always. I have this practice where I actually hand out my personal contact number to parents, because when any complications happen, the surgeons will be the first to cast the stone at you. So you rather take on the ownership of them calling you, and you try and do the first cut of managing the complications yourself, and then only involve the surgeon PRN. I think that is another message I'd like to share with everybody. Now, so I mean, at this point, you're not going to use RFA as a first line. Certainly, I think sclerotherapy still has its value. I find, all you need is just to drip some drops of bleomycin. It's like some magic potion, and then you use the force. And a lot of times the malformation will shrink down. But now you have a new force that's called RFA. You also can do freezing, and I think that's a great thing to do. So, but at the end of the day, let's go back to our patients and come up with patient-centric management plans for them. let's make sure that where surgery is needed, I think we still need to refer them to surgery. But we need to do whatever is necessary first, I think, before we do that. It's easy to pick up patient skills, and that's our multidisciplinary team at KK Women's and Children's Hospital. You can see we are very well represented by dermatology, but we work with our plastics team, pediatric surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and our own Denise Adams equivalent is Professor Chan Mei, who's a heme oncologist. So with that, remember 27th to 29th of September, Singapore at Shangri-La Hotel. Thank you very much for your attention.